Welcome to the LaLanne Pass It On podcast. My name is Greg Justice, and I am here with the real star of the show, Elaine, LaLanne. How are you today, Elaine?
Oh, I'm great. And I can't, Brett doesn't even know that I know Rod Dado. So I'm going to talk to him about that. So listen in.
Well, excellent. So today we have a very special guest, Dusty Baker, a name synonymous with resilience, leadership, and the love of baseball. A former player and manager, Dusty's journey in the game spans more than 50 years. As a player, he was a key figure in the 1970s and 80s, earning a World Series ring with the Los Angeles Dodgers. His powerful bat and steady presence in the outfield made him a standout in Major League Baseball. But Dusty's impact goes much further than just his playing days. As a manager, he became known for his calm demeanor, strategic mind, and ability to nurture young talent. Over the years, he's managed several teams, most notably the San Francisco Giants, Cincinnati Reds, and the Houston Astros, where he led the Astros to a World Series championship in 2022, cementing his place as one of the most respected figures in the game. Throughout his career, Dusty has been a mentor, a tactician, and a beloved figure in baseball. In today's episode, we're going to talk about his journey, his leadership style, and what makes him one of the most enduring figures in modern baseball. Dusty, it is a pleasure to have you on the podcast today.
Well, thanks for having me. I'll tell you one thing. I mean, you can really introduce somebody. I've never been introduced quite like that, but thank you, and I'm glad to be on the show with Lala, and this should be fun.
Yeah, we will be fun. And guess, I heard you say, Greg, about his journey. So the journey's got to start somewhere. So I'm going to ask, were you interested in baseball when you were young? How young were you? I lost my front tooth playing baseball. I I got hit in the eye. They didn't know whether I had an eye playing baseball.
Ooh, that's
So
better in the tooth than in the eye.
so when did you get interested in playing baseball?
Well, actually, I don't remember. It's always been there.
Yeah.
And I'm from Riverside, California, and I was born down there, and we were everybody in the neighborhood. My dad was a coach. We all played almost every sport, and we played football at this time of the year, then basketball, then baseball, naturally in the summer, in the spring and summer. So uh, we played in the backyard. My dad was my little league coach. My dad was also Barry Bonds' father, the league coach. So, everybody, in the community almost played baseball.
Yeah, right. Right. That's what I did. So then you went and did you when did you go in to professional baseball?
Well, I didn't really want to play baseball. I really wanted to play basketball. And,
Oh,
my mom and dad got divorced my senior year. And so the economic spokes were off the wheel at that time. And I was 17 going on 18. And so I actually prayed about it. I didn't know what to do. And the Braves drafted me, which I hoped that they wouldn't, because they were in the South at the time where there was a lot of unrest and stuff all over the country and all over the world, actually. And uh, it was sort of chosen for me to play pro baseball, by
yeah.
circumstances. And, I said my prayers the night before, and because I didn't know what to do. Sometimes you're at a crossroads, especially when you're a youngster at that time. And so my dad just told me, if you're at a crossroads, take the road to the right and pray that the Lord, direct your steps.
Yeah.
And Dusty, and you spent 7 years with the Braves,
Hmm.
and one of your mentors was Hank Aaron. Tell us about the impact that he had on your life, and then we'll share a little trivia about you having the best seat in the house for that 715th home run.
Well, the Braves sent for me to go to Los Angeles, and the Dodgers were my favorite team. Tommy Davis was my favorite player. Played left field, wore number 12, and I wore number 12 all these years and still do because of him. And so anyway, the Braves sent for my mom and I to come down to LA. I worked out with the team in Dodger Stadium because we had moved from Riverside to Sacramento at the time. And so, that was big for me. And Bobby Bonds had signed with the Giants, from Riverside. So I was a combination of Dodgers and uh, Giants, so to speak. And Riverside was a great place to live and a great place to grow up. And back to the story. Hank Aaron told my mother that he would take care of me as if I was his son, if I signed, and if I had the confidence in myself to be in the big leagues by the time my class would have graduated, which I graduated in '67. And so, my class would have graduated in '71, '72. And I said, okay, I got plenty of confidence. And he promised my mom he'd take care of me, make me go to church, make me, get up and show up on time. And so, he was a mentor to me on and off the field. And
That's important that you have confidence in yourself.
yes, it
That-
is.
And you have to like yourself, I think, don't
True
you?
that. Yeah,
I mean,
I
you
think you
can't,
gotta, and there's only one you,
that's it. And
and
you can't be down on yourself.
no, no, but a lot of times people are down on themselves because people put them down. They let them put them down.
Yes, right,
And yeah, you have to be aware of the negatives. You have to be aware,
right,
sometimes people don't have the best outlook for you, and the
right.
best wishes for you. So you have to recognize that, separate yourself, and be around, positive people, as positive as possible. Not to change the subject, your husband, I'll tell you, Jack LaLanne. I used to watch Jack LaLanne on TV
He was
when I
positive,
was,
I'll tell you.
oh yeah, and I was a skinny little kid, and I was trying to get some muscles, and I remember watching those, and Jack LaLanne started, studios where people could work out. My family didn't go to them, but Jack LaLanne was one of the first guys that I saw that really was into weights, nutrition, swimming. Then when I moved up here, people they all told me about Jack swimming from Alcatraz to San Francisco. Is that true?
Yeah, yeah. He was very positive. And you know
Yes.
what he used to tell to me and to my kids? You have to have confidence in yourself. You have to like yourself and you have to be positive. And I don't want any negative. We had no negative things in our house.
Beautiful.
If anybody has said anything negative, he says, that's negative. We don't talk negative in this house.
Hmm.
You know? So it's important for people to think positive and
Right.
not to think negative.
Yeah, for sure, because we're constantly bombarded with negatives.
Oh,
We're bombarded with negatives more, 10 times more than the positives. And then when somebody's positive, man, they really stand out about, being positive and being different. But we all can be positive. Positive thoughts bring about positive results. It might not be in the time frame that you want, but sooner or later it's going to be in the time
well,
frame that it's
you're an
supposed to be.
example of it because your positiveness came through in everything that you did and all the awards you won and all the all the games you've won and all just everything you've done.
Now, Dusty, you're one of only 7 people on this earth that have won both a World Series as a player and a manager.
Mhm.
Is that correct?
I guess,
I mean,
like every day people are telling me things,
that's
and
pretty impressive. That's
yeah,
pretty.
well, thank you. And I don't read about myself. If there's an article, I said, okay, if I talk to the fellow or the young lady, it's like, okay, I said it. So as long as you write what I said, I got a pretty good idea what I'm
I'm
saying.
pretty much the same way. I never once I say something or do something, I don't
Yeah,
want to look at myself. I
yeah.
said it and that's it. I nothing I can do about it.
Isn't that the truth? And see, I'm the
That's
same way. People say, "Oh man, did you watch yourself on TV or did you read about yourself in a magazine?" I said, "No, not really." Because if they didn't write it right, or it didn't come out right, sooner or later people got some people
I
that
should have done this. I should have said
oh
that.
yeah,
Or,
well people are going to tell you about it. You know what I mean? It's like okay,
yeah.
and so I just try to live my life and try to do the best I can. And my dad used to always tell me, when in doubt, try to try to do the right thing. And as long as your right thing isn't warped to the point where you make a wrong into a right, you got to know wrong from right first, and most of us do.
I was just telling Greg earlier, I said my father used to take me to the best restaurant in town when I was young. He says, I'm going to take you to the best restaurant. Guess where he took me? To the
Go ahead.
jail, because he was
To where?
to the jail.
I
We had lunch with the jailer.
thought
Because,
that's what you said to the G.
yeah,
What
because
what town were you in?
Minneapolis, and
Oh, you're from
he was a county
Minneapolis.
he was an assistant county attorney, and so he was bound and determined to take me the
Yeah.
best. And so we all had a wonderful time. The jailer was a very nice
Oh
guy.
wow.
We had, and I was just young, in my teens. But I
Minneapolis. I like
tell you, I never
Minneapolis.
did anything wrong.
Yeah. Well, you're from a good town, Minneapolis. I like Minneapolis because I love to fish, and Minneapolis has some of the best lake
Yeah,
fishing around. And they say 10,000 lakes. I think there's 25,000 lakes. Seems
yeah,
like when you're right.
I know.
Well, hey, Dusty, let me take you back in time, and I want to share a memory of mine from 1974, June of 1974.
Wow.
I think you know where I'm going with this. I was a 13-year-old young man watching a baseball game in the TV section at Kmart in Colorado Springs, Colorado,
Wow.
and something very special happened on that evening, and
Yep.
you had the best seat in the house. And that was when Hank Aaron hit his 715th home run. And tell the people, this is a great trivia question because a lot of people don't know a whole lot about that other than that one moment of him hitting the home run. But you had the best seat in the house. Tell everybody about where you were and about that experience.
Well, I was on deck, and Hank Aaron told me, he said, "Hey, I'm gonna get it over tonight." And he didn't do it the first at bat, but he says, "Hey, I'm gonna get it over right now," because it was a cold night in Atlanta, probably the coldest night I'd ever been on a baseball field in Atlanta. And uh, he hit it off Al Downing with the Dodgers, and um, it was quite a moment for me, but I didn't know how big a moment it was going to be until later. And because that was Hank's moment, and I've never seen a guy handle anything like that with such grace and dignity and style. And we talk about positiveness and confidence. I mean, this guy was so confident and so positive, and his concentration was above, anybody that I've ever seen. And but he didn't wear it on his sleeve, and you would not know he was Hank Aaron if you met him, probably other than recognize his face, because he was one of the most humble superstars that I've been around, probably in the same class. Well, him and Sandy Koufax, and I asked Hank, who's the toughest guy for you to face, and he told me Sandy Koufax. And but then when I asked Hank, who's the toughest for, I mean, when I asked Sandy who's the toughest for him, he said Bad Henry. So they had mutual respect for each other. And he taught us humility. He taught us to never show up the opposition. He taught us to, uh, not to boast or brag. And that's probably one of the, not one, but yeah, it's probably the highlight of my young life at that time.
Wow. Well, and
I,
then a
I,
couple years later, you were traded to the Los Angeles Dodgers.
True that.
And that was probably a dream come true for you, being a kid growing up liking the Dodgers.
Yeah, true that. And growing up liking the Dodgers and liking Tommy Davis and wearing number 12. And, I consider myself one of the luckiest guys around because, how many kids grow up to, you know, play in their idols' place in left field, be in the lineup, being in the lineup in his spot and wearing number 12. And these are things that I used to play in the backyard. Like, hey man, I'm Tommy Davis, and then, and then here I was, or here I am, wearing his number, and perhaps there's some kid out there that might feel the same way about me. So we got to pass it on.
That's right. Pass it on. Uh, did you know of Rod Dato, who was the coach of the USC?
Yes, I did. I know Rod, and I know his son.
Yeah.
Dato used to call everybody Tiger, I think. Hey,
Yeah,
Tiger, how
he's
you
Tiger.
doing?
Everybody's Tiger. We used to go to the games with him, uh,
Yeah.
and and uh, and we
Baseball games or football
the
games?
baseball games. Yeah,
Hmm.
we were sitting there with Rod Dato a lot, and was spent. He became a very good friend. In fact, just before he died, Jack had a star on Hollywood Boulevard, and he made it out to
Wow.
see Jack's when he got the star when Jack was 88 years old. And Rod was a very, very close, dear friend, and he never took a cent for 40 years to manage that USC baseball team.
He had some good teams. And see,
Yeah,
he was close friends, we used to see him all the time because he was close friends with Tommy Lasorda. And
yes,
so,
Tommy Lasorda, I remember him.
oh yeah. And then, we had a strike in 81 and we used the SC
Yeah.
baseball field, to train. And Rod Dado allowed us to come over there when I was on the Dodgers to train during the strike.
Well, did you played with Ron Say and
Oh yeah,
Harvey
the
and
Penguin, and I played with Garvey and
and
Reggie Smith and Davy Lopes, who's my daughter's
yeah, right.
godfather. So Steve Yeager, Don Sutton, I played with some great Tommy
Yeah,
John, some great players of that time and good
yeah,
people.
right. Yeah, well, your career is so exciting, and I'm I'm enjoying every moment of these memories.
So
Well,
thank you.
and then Dusty, after
Yep.
your playing career ended, you decided to go into managing. What was the did you
Not really. It
oh,
didn't
okay.
really,
Well,
well, it didn't really happen like that. And see, at the end of my career there, a lot of ball players, probably 50% of most ball players that get divorced, you get divorced in that first year or two after you're home a lot.
yeah.
And so this is what happened to me. And so I was at another crossroads, and uh, Al Campanis at that time had said some things that
I remember
derogatory.
Al Campanis.
Yeah, and Al was a good guy, and then that shocked us all, but it's happened. And so baseball, I was getting divorced, just like my parents were getting divorced at the other crossroads when I was young. And um, I wanted to go back to Northern California. And at that time, my wife didn't. And so, there's always a final straw. It doesn't just happen overnight. And so, again, after Al Campanis came Al Rosen, and Al Rosen was the general manager of the Giants, and it was a perfect time for me to go back to Northern California. Like I said, I was at a crossroads. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was a stockbroker the one year I was out in 1987, which I didn't like. Where the stock market crashed, and a lot of people blame me for it, but it wasn't
Oh,
really
I
much.
know.
You remember that, right?
I remember that year.
Oh
There's a lot.
yeah. And so like I had a bunch of things going on in my head and in my heart. And so I said, well, okay, let me give this coaching thing a try. And I asked my dad, I said, well, Dad, what do you think? Should I do it? And he goes, son, go to the mountaintop and just pray on this decision like you've done in the rest of your life. When you got a major decision at a crossroad. And so I was checking in the hotel, and the owner of the Giants, Bob Lurie, who I had played with one year in 1984 after I left the Dodgers. Well, somebody tapped me on the shoulder, and I turned around, and it was the owner of the Giants. And I said, I was in Lake Arrowhead, and I turned around and said, "What are you doing here?" He goes, "Well, I'm here just for the weekend." I never saw him again. I never, if I come 5 minutes earlier or 5 minutes later, I'd have missed him. And he told me, he says, you ought to come join the Giants as a coach. And I said, I don't think so. Thanks, Mr. Laurie. So I called my dad. I said, Dad, you think that's the sign? And he said, son, he said, you hadn't even prayed on it yet, and the sign taps you on the shoulder. So he says, he says, you better adhere to what you prayed about. And I said, Dad, I ain't prayed yet. So that's what made it my decision. I started coaching, and I asked Al Rosen, because I wanted to be the assistant general manager. And he told me, he says, no, I think you'd be better suited for the field. So I didn't know how to take that. And he saw a look on my face and he goes, no, I think he'd be a fine uh, field manager in 5 years, after 5 years of coaching. So I said, okay, I'll give myself 5 years. Then I'll go do something else. In 5 years and one day after I accepted the coaching job, I was named the manager of the Giants. So see, that's what I meant by it was kind of chosen for me.
Yes, yes,
It's not that most of the things in my life that I wanted to do a lot of times, it didn't turn out right, but things that I was supposed to do or I was destined to do
yes.
turned out the best.
Yes, I think it happens to all of us. And if people look back in their lives, they'll probably find signs like that too.
Hmm.
Don't
What
you?
about you? What about you and Jack? How did Jack get started? I know he was a bodybuilder and
Oh, well,
weightlifter, but
he was a weak, sick kid, and and he he was he attended a lecture one time, and he was out of school for 6 months because
mm,
and he was 14, and the lecturer said, if you obey nature's laws, you can be born again. And so it's a long story, but it's in my book, Pride and
okay.
Discipline. And if you have pride, and you had Jack says, if you have pride and if you have discipline, you can't go wrong. And those two things are what you need in life is pride and discipline. Pride in your work, pride in what you do, what you say, and discipline to carry it through. So those are those two things. And I don't know whether you have the book or we got,
No, no. I mean,
but we want you to,
I like things like that. Okay.
yeah, well, we do too. And so, and it's all about the mind. He says, everything starts between your ears, in your
True
mind.
that.
What wiggles your finger? Your mind. And so everything that he did, and that's why I said, I didn't, everybody says, what a body he had. And I said, honey, I didn't fall in love with his body. I fell in love with his brain.
I
So
got you.
that's what we had a meeting of the minds.
That's beautiful. That's a
Yeah.
beautiful story.
And that was my second marriage and Jack's second marriage. So
Hmm. Well,
it's,
I'm on my second and final though. I'm 30 years this time.
yeah, well, you're the same age. You're younger than my oldest son.
Really?
You could be my son.
I sure All right.
Well, hey,
Mm,
Dusty, as a manager, you were always known for being calm under pressure and being a strong leader. Where
mhm.
did you get those attributes? Where did you learn that? And tell us about how that developed.
Mm, I don't know, probably through evolution and time. I was the oldest of five, so I was always responsible for something, even though I didn't want to be half the time. And then a lot of times I was captains on my amateur team, or football, basketball. And then when I got to the Marines, um, I was in the Marine Reserves for 6 years, and that's where I really learned, teamwork and probably leadership to another level. Because if you have to guard a guy's life that you may not like or he may not like you, I mean that's the epitome of teamwork. And
Sounds like
so,
your dad had a little something that pushed you
oh
along.
yeah, oh yeah, my dad had it now. I mean, my dad was a man in my town where I came from. Everybody knew my dad as Big John. See, I'm Johnny Jr., but my dad never called me Johnny Jr., never called me Johnny. My whole family just called me Dusty. And the only guys that ever called me Johnny were guys that I went to elementary school with that weren't allowed to, the teacher wasn't allowed to call you by your nickname. And so when guys at the ballpark, and if they call me Johnny, I'll turn around because I figured it was somebody that I went to school with.
Dusty, you never get rusty.
I heard that. I feel a little rusty in my joints every now and then. You know what I mean?
Uh, Well, hey, Dusty, I'm going to
Yeah.
ask you a question that'll have two answers. One is a player, and then one is a coach.
Mhm.
Who do you feel was the most talented player you played with? And then who is the most talented player you coached?
That's a good question. Most talented player I played with was Hank Aaron. I mean, and probably the second best player I played with was Reggie Smith with the Dodgers. And I think that he didn't get nearly enough credit because he was a every tool player. You know what I mean? And maybe some people say five, some people say six, but he was an every tool player. And the most talented guy that I managed was uh, Barry Bonds. And
Barry Bonds.
oh yeah, and I had some good ones. Now trust me. I mean, but
Yeah.
See, Barry's dad, my dad coached Barry's dad in Little League in Riverside. We're all from
Really?
Riverside, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I held Barry Bonds almost the day he was born. And like I said, we're all from Riverside. And boy, the Bonds family, I mean, they had a brother that played with the um, Kansas City Chiefs, Robert, and then Bobby's sister went to the Olympics, and then Bobby played for the Giants, and Barry is Bobby's son.
Oh my God. Well, Barry is, I mean, he was quite a player and a home run hitter, right?
True that. Again, he was an everything player.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, you have lived an amazing life, Dusty, and your experiential knowledge is what this podcast is all about. It's about passing on
Mhm.
legacy. And we are just so thankful, grateful that you took some time out of your day to spend with us. And I'll let Elaine and you have the final words as we wrap up today.
Thank you for coming on and talking baseball to us today. And not only baseball, but a way of life and a way of living life. Thank you very much.
Oh, no problem. My mother always told me never ask a woman her age, but I think you're at the age where you should be proud of your age. How old are you? 90, 90 what?
I'll be 99 in
99.
nine in one in a month.
That
Yeah.
is 99. Well, happy birthday.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'll talk to you when you're 100, okay?
Okay.